Okay, hi
Okay.
Cara.
Hi, Josephine. I practice my buongiorno. I don't know if that's about all. I'm very, very honored to be here with you. I hope that we can hear each other. You know,
Yeah. If I have problem, I ask you, okay?
All right, I'll speak loud.
Okay.
All right, so I'm sure many of you do know the story of Anna Frank, but I'm going to recap some of it now, and then we can open it up for discussion. So it starts with Otto Frank was a very established businessman. He was a banker in Germany. His family lived in Germany. We're talking about the early 30s. And he had a wonderful life in Germany, in Frankfurt, with his wife.
Okay, Cara, I would like to introduce your speech, ok?
Right.
Allora, adesso ci farà un breve riassunto, diciamo, della vita di Anna Frank e ci introdurrà la vita di Otto Frank, che era un uomo d'affari tedesco e quindi ci racconterà tutta la vita. Ok, Cara? You can.
Okay. Otto Frank considered himself first a German and then a Jew. He had been very established as a lieutenant in the army, the German army. They had a very cultured family. They loved where they were, but times were changing now. It was 1933. People in Germany were filled with fear because they were hungry. They had lost the war. It was a very tenuous time for them. And it was a time when it made it very right for the Chancellor of Germany, who is Hitler.
Okay. Wait, Cara. So, Otto Frank si considerava un vero e proprio tedesco più che un ebreo. Era un luogotenente dell'esercito, apparteneva ad una famiglia di alto livello culturale e si è trovato a vivere in una situazione di grossi cambiamenti nel tempo in cui è vissuto. Quindi si è trovato in un momento di bivio, di cambiamento molto forte, perché la popolazione cominciava a soffrire di questi cambiamenti. Ok, Cara?
Okay, so what happened, and this is what happens, as you know, throughout the world, when there is a lot of fear and it turns into hate. And it's easy to target people. And so this is what Hitler did. He said, you are hungry, you're out of work, you don't have, everything's gone wrong because of the Jewish people. We are going to get rid of all Jews and all of many other people besides that, other religions. Yeah.
So, I go. Quindi cominciava ad arrivare quel momento in cui si dilagava, era una paura che poi si è trasformata in odio e tutto veniva attribuito alla presenza degli ebrei. Quindi se tutti avevano fame era sempre imputato alla presenza degli ebrei all'interno in Europa. Quindi questa paura dilagante che diventava sempre più forte all'interno della società e quindi dilagava ovviamente anche l'odio nei confronti degli ebrei. Go.
Okay, so then Otto Frank realized his business, and they were saying no Jews allowed here. Jewish businesses were being shut down. There was his world was getting smaller and smaller, and he thought his children, his family is not safe. So he took them. They moved to Holland.
Ok. Quindi Otto cominciò a pensare che anche per la sua attività le cose potessero andare peggio e che la situazione stava così degenerando che cominciò ad avere paura. Quindi decise di trasferirsi con la sua famiglia proprio perché riteneva che la situazione non fosse poi così sicura né per la sua attività né per la sua famiglia, tantomeno per le sue figlie. Go.
Okay. So in Holland, he opened up, he had his business his family was in Switzerland, but in Holland, he and his brother-in-law created this business, a spice factory. And he thought, this is going to be where we will be until the war is over. and it looked like this was going to be very good for them with the spice factory.
Ok.
And so,
Quindi Otto decise di trasferirsi dalla Germania andando in Olanda, dove cominciò una nuova attività, anche se e questo fu il momento un momento positivo per lui, per la sua famiglia e per continuare la sua attività. Quindi mise su una nuova attività. Go, Cara.
okay. So his daughters, Anne and Margaret, were very happy. They loved it. They learned Dutch very fast. His wife wasn't so happy. She missed Germany, but they were establishing their life. And now it looked like maybe things were going to get better. They were hoping the war would be over.
Ok. Quindi le sue figlie, Anna e Margaret, impararono molto velocemente l'olandese, erano molto felici di essersi trasferite in Olanda perché pensavano che questo trasferimento rappresentasse per loro un momento di felicità, un momento di superamento di questa fase critica che loro avevano invece vissuto in Germania, e quindi pensavano che ormai il peggio insomma fosse passato. Go, Cara.
Okay. So in June 12th, so 1941, Anna she turned 13 years old, and she received from the gifts that she had was a red check diary.
I can't hear you, Cara. So on 12 June 1941, Anna, what did he receive?
On June 12th,
yeah.
she turned 13.
Yeah.
Okay, so she received a red check diary.
Yeah.
Diary. And she was very excited, and she would write. Anna was a very animated, she loved to write. She had a lot of friends. She talked too much in school, but she would write in her diary. And so now, do you want me to keep going?
No, I would like to translate in Italian. Allora, nel 1941, il 12 giugno, lei compiva 13 anni e per questa occasione ricevette un diario su cui Anna appuntava tutto ciò che le succedeva. Era una ragazza che amava scrivere, amava andare a scuola, aveva molti amici e quindi trascriveva tutto ciò che accadeva nella sua vita su questo diario che aveva ricevuto in dono per il suo compleanno. Go, Cara.
Okay. So it was getting worse and worse in Holland, even though they were hoping that things would get better. Germany was now taking over. And July 5th, 1942, Anna was writing in her diary up on the rooftop, and Margaret, her sister, came up to her and was crying. Something happened. And she said she thought it was for her.
I can't hear you, Cara. Can you repeat, please? Your voice is not.
Oh my God.
So I was in July 1942 when Margaret came to visit her, and then?
And Anna and said, something has happened. And they went down to talk to the parents. And what happened was that Margaret received a deportation notice. She was
okay.
sent, okay.
So the first one is Margaret, who is going to receive her deportation notice, right? Ok.
Right.
Dopo questo primo periodo, anche in Olanda le cose cominciavano a peggiorare perché il potere della Germania continuava ad aumentare e quindi a sovrastare gli altri poteri europei, e nel luglio 1942, un giorno, Margaret fece visita ad Anna dicendole che era successo qualcosa e quindi bisognava assolutamente condividere questo evento tragico che si stava verificando con i genitori. Ok, Carago?
Okay, so then it was Otto Frank sat the children down and said, we have a hiding place. We weren't going to tell you until it's very dangerous.
Cara, sorry. So Otto set off with his family in this hiding place, and then?
And then he said, we have to disappear.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
I got
the internet. Yeah, the internet.
The internet is down. It's not stable. Otto quindi nel momento in cui parlò con le proprie figlie decise di organizzare una sorta di sparizione dalla circolazione, confidando alle proprie figlie e alla propria famiglia di avere un luogo segreto in cui nascondersi. Ok, Cara, go.
Okay.
We try.
So, the children didn't know about this hiding place, but he had he had 4 helpers that worked with him in the office. And he asked them all, would you help us? Would you help us hide? They were not Jewish. They worked for Frank, and they were willing to help, but especially his assistant, Meep Bees.
Nel momento in cui decide di sparire, confida alla sua famiglia di avere questo luogo segreto all'interno della loro azienda dove andare a rifugiarsi. Ovviamente in questa occasione Otto fa riferimento ai suoi dipendenti, 4 suoi dipendenti non ebrei che hanno avuto un ruolo determinante in questa fase in quanto sono stati coloro che li hanno aiutati a sparire, a non farsi più vedere, e in modo particolare la sua assistente Matt Gibbs, right?
Right.
Go.
Okay. So Otto wrote on a piece of paper an address in Switzerland. He rolled it up and threw it in the trash can. So that
I can't hear you, Cara. I can't hear you. So Otto wrote on a piece of paper
his address, an address in Switzerland, so that if anybody found it, they would think they had gone to Switzerland.
Mhm.
But Meep opened the door for them, and they all slowly, and it was very dangerous. No Jews were allowed. It was early in the morning, it was raining, and they had to walk to a hiding place.
Ok, allora Otto scrisse su un pezzo di carta che loro si sarebbero trasferiti in Svizzera, ma con l'aiuto di McPeace in realtà si trasferirono in questo luogo segreto per scomparire. Ovviamente questo momento è un momento molto particolare, molto pericoloso, in quanto nessun ebreo era concesso di potersi muovere.
All right, so they go and they walked, and where they went was to Otto Frank's factory. It was a tall house, and they went inside, closed the door, and the helpers were there. And there was another door that they opened, and inside was a hidden apartment. And that's where they all went. And Otto Frank said, now this is where we will be until the end of the war.
Ok, quindi decisero di andare in questo luogo segreto per scomparire. Entrarono in questo appartamento segreto all'interno della loro azienda e in quel momento Otto confidò alla propria famiglia che da questo momento in poi non sarebbero potuti più uscire fin quando insomma non fosse finito tutto. Era l'unico luogo segreto e sicuro per loro per poter sopravvivere a ciò che stava accadendo al di fuori. Go.
In time, they were added to the family was another family, his business partner, Mr. and Mrs. Von Pels, and their son, Peter, and later a dentist, Mr. Pfeffer. 8 people in hiding. And in time, they put a bookshelf there, and then they put a bookcase in front of it, so nobody would know that there was a hiding place there.
Ok, a loro si aggiungono anche altre persone, in tutto erano 8 persone nascoste e la porta d'ingresso, diciamo, a questo appartamento segreto si trovava dietro una libreria, ma nessuno poteva immaginare cosa ci fosse dietro quella libreria.
Right. And during that time now, Anna would write in her diary and write notebooks, and the children would study, and Otto Frank would teach them because they hoped to go to school when they left after the war. He was like their teacher every day, and they had to whisper because there were factory workers below.
Cara, I miss your voice. Sorry, I miss your voice. So in this case, Anna start writing the diary, and although he's he's a teacher of all of them, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They hope to go to school after the war. So every day, but they had to be very, very, very quiet because there were factory workers below who should never know that there were Jews in hiding. Only the helpers knew. So in the daytime, quiet. And then at night they can come downstairs.
Ok, I translate. Dal momento in cui entrano in questo appartamento segreto, sono costretti al silenzio assoluto durante il giorno, perché c'erano gli operai che lavoravano nella loro fabbrica. In questo periodo di isolamento totale, completo dal resto del mondo, Otto divenne l'insegnante di delle figlie, ma veniva fatto tutto in modo sussurrato, perché non potevano essere assolutamente scoperti all'esterno. Quindi diciamo che vissero più durante la notte che durante il giorno, in quanto come ho detto prima, durante il giorno doveva regnare il silenzio assoluto. Go, Cara.
Okay, so there was a lot of drama. The factory worker, there was a lot of suspicion. It was very dangerous. There were burglaries that had to be very quiet. The factory worker below was very suspicious. He did very strange things about where was Otto Frank. He would put flour on the floor to see if there were footprints at night. There were very frightening things that happened, and these people were in that hiding place with meat, bringing them food and clothing, anything they needed throughout this time. 2 years they were in this hiding place.
So all the workers were suspicious, right? Because they have some suspicion because they know that something wasn't very easy.
It was strange.
Yeah, it was strange. Ok. Gli operai che lavoravano nella loro azienda cominciarono ad essere sospettosi, si chiedevano dove fosse Otto, perché vedevano delle situazioni strane. Comunque c'erano persone che entravano anche per portare cibo. Quindi, siccome questa permanenza nascosta in questo appartamento è durata quasi 2 anni, durante questo periodo tutti cominciarono ad essere sospettosi di alcuni movimenti che gli operai ritenevano poco chiari. Ok, Cara, go.
Okay, so during that time, Anne would write about everybody in there. She wrote about them, and she wasn't always wonderful about it either. But she was a teenager stuck with all these people, and she was going out of her mind. And Otto was the one who calmed her down. But she wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. That's what kept her going. And it looked like maybe the war would be over, but something terrible. August 4th, 1944, there were 3 Dutch police and 1 German Nazi pulled up to the front of the office and went to the factory worker below and said, "Show us the Jews."
Wow. I go. Anna durante questo periodo che ha trascorso in questo appartamento ha continuato a scrivere continuamente, descrivendo tutto ciò che accadeva durante il giorno e tutto ciò che accadeva a loro. E sembrava che le cose stessero andando per il meglio. Purtroppo il 4 agosto 1944 si presentarono davanti alla loro azienda la polizia olandese con un soldato nazista e chiesero agli operai mostrateci dove sono gli ebrei. Go, Cara.
So the factory worker, Von Maren, pointed upstairs, and they went upstairs, and the head Nazi, Silberbauer, you don't have to say it, the head Nazi, went over to one of the helpers and said, "Give me the keys. Who's in charge? Give me the keys." Had to give him the keys, and he walked straight over to the bookshelf. He knew somebody told them, somebody betrayed them.
Quindi, yeah. Uno dei militari chiese chi ha le chiavi, quindi qualcuno aveva svelato il loro segreto. Quindi andò dritto dietro la libreria e per aprire quella porta. Quindi furono traditi, qualcuno aveva raccontato la loro verità, quindi il soldato aprì.
So, yes, so he went there and one of the helpers went with them and they told what happened is that he went there, he went upstairs, they were standing there and he couldn't believe he was seeing 8 people in hiding. And he saw a big chest that said lieutenant on it. And he said, whose is this? And he pushed it down and out was a lieutenant's uniform. A German lieutenant's uniform. He says, whose is this? And Otto said, it's mine. And the Nazi backed away because Otto Frank outranked.
I can't hear you, Cara.
It was Otto Frank's lieutenant's uniform.
Yeah.
And the Nazi practically saluted him.
I can't hear you, Cara.
Still can't hear me.
So this is the uniform of Otto Frank, and the German wow back because he couldn't believe, right?
Right.
And then?
And then he Meep was standing there and he arrested them all. A very big van pulled up front and all of them were taken downstairs and went into the van and disappeared.
Okay.
Okay.
Quindi i militari salirono in questo appartamento segreto, furono stupefatti del fatto di trovare 8 persone all'interno di questo appartamento segreto, ma la cosa che più spaventò diciamo il soldato nazista fu la sorpresa di trovare in questo appartamento l'uniforme di luogotenente e chiese a chi appartenesse e Otto rispose che era la sua questa divisa. Da questo momento in poi furono presi, caricati su un van e portati via. Da questo momento spariscono. Go, Cara.
After they left, they were taken away to the concentration camps. But as soon as they left, Meep,
as soon as they left,
Meep, his assistant,
yeah,
went upstairs. It was now empty, and the Nazis took the money, anything they could find, all over the floor. Whereas Anne's writing and the red check diary in the middle of the floor. They thought they were taking valuables, but they left all of Anne's. Yes.
Ok. Right. Nel momento in cui tutti furono portati via, McGibbs, l'assistente più fedele di Otto, salì in questo appartamento ormai vuoto e notò che i soldati avevano portato via tutto ciò che era di valore, avevano però tralasciato il diario di Anna, che lei ovviamente custodì. Cara.
Okay, so the helpers were saying, oh, this is Anna's writing. Let's read it. Let's read the diary. And Meep said, no, this is Anne's writing. I'm keeping it for her until she gets back from the concentration. She didn't read one word of it. Had she read it, she would have destroyed it because her name and everybody's name was in it. But she didn't, out of respect and a choice that she made to respect Anne.
Ok, nel momento in cui l'assistente Matt Gibbs trovò questo diario, avrebbe potuto distruggerlo perché all'interno c'erano i nomi, ma in realtà lei lo custodì così gelosamente con l'intento di restituirlo ad Anna senza assolutamente leggere nessuna riga proprio per rispetto di Anna e per custodire la sua memoria, i suoi scritti, quindi cercò di preservarlo gelosamente. Go on, Cara.
So she put all of the writing in her desk and did not look at it.
Cara, I can't hear you. I miss your voice. Sorry.
Okay, she put everything in her desk and would not read it. Okay, so I don't know why this is doing this. Is it me? I can't.
I don't know, Cara, but no problem. You can repeat. Don't get nervous.
Right. Okay. Okay. So they went off to Auschwitz. First Westerbork, then to Auschwitz. It was the last time Otto Frank saw his daughters and his wife. And so in Auschwitz, this is where positive choices, there's choices throughout here that are positive. With all the horror that was around him, only thing that kept him alive was seeing his daughters again, being a father. And he told this young man, call me Papa, that is who I am.
Ok. Da questo momento spariscono e Otto si ritrova all'interno del campo di concentramento di Auschwitz. L'unica cosa che lo teneva in vita era la speranza di rivedere le sue figlie. Infatti disse alle persone che erano lì con lui di chiamarlo papà, perché era l'unico motivo per continuare a vivere. La speranza di rivedere le sue figlie. Go, Cara.
So he did not know what happened to his family, but he held this vision that he would see his daughters again. He found out that his wife had died and the others, but he didn't know about his daughters. Now in 1945, January 1945, he was liberated. Auschwitz was liberated. And it took him months and months to get back to Holland by, boat, train.
Ok, I go,
back.
Cara.
Okay.
Da questo momento lui è separato dalla sua famiglia, l'unica cosa che scopre nel corso del tempo è della morte di sua moglie, non sa nulla in merito alle figlie. Nel gennaio 1945 fu liberato e cerca in tutti i modi di tornare in Olanda. Ovviamente per questo ritorno impiega molto tempo utilizzando mezzi di trasporto diversi, ma comunque prende tanto tempo per tornare in Olanda. Go, Cara.
Okay, so now he arrives. It took him months to get back to Holland. He was skin and bone. He was a tall man, but he weighed around 110 pounds, skin and bone, when he arrived. And all he wanted to do was find out what happened to his daughters. And he put an ad in the paper, have you seen my daughters, Anne and Margaret Frank? And then he received a notice from the Red Cross with their names crossed next to it. They had died.
Wow. Cara Ego, nel momento in cui riesce ad arrivare in Olanda, tornare a casa, era ormai scheletrico, ma l'unico obiettivo che aveva era di ritrovare le sue figlie, quindi cercò in tutti i modi di avere notizie delle proprie figlie. L'unica notizia la ricevette dalla Croce Rossa, su questa notizia, accanto al nome delle proprie figlie, era segnato insomma che le figlie purtroppo non c'erano più, che erano state uccise. Go, Cara.
He did not want to believe this, but it was horrible. And he went back to the factory with Miep and her husband Jan and cried out and said, I cannot be disturbed. He went into his office, he put his head down. That is when Miep opened up her desk and took out all of Anne's writings and the diary. And she brought it over to him and put his hands on the diary and said, this is your daughter's legacy.
Ok. Ovviamente a questa notizia non poteva crederci, sembrava una cosa impossibile, quindi torna alla sua azienda dove trova la sua assistente fidata, Matt Gibbs, con altre persone di sua fiducia. Mette la testa sulla sua scrivania e dice di non voler essere disturbato. In questo momento Matt Gibbs gli restituisce gli scritti di sua figlia dicendogli questa è l'eredità che ti ha lasciato sua figlia, quindi gli pone sulla scrivania tutti i manoscritti di Anna. Go, Cara.
That's when Anne was very private. Nobody read her words. Nobody read her diary. And then he started opening this up and crying because as much he was the closest to Anne, he adored her, she adored him. But he said, I did not know this side of her. I did not know she was this sensitive and deep. She'd been so crazy and funny and all these things, but she hid this other side.
I can't hear you.
Now can you hear me?
She's so just the last sentence. He said he didn't know this side of Anna, right? So he didn't know about her sensitivity, right?
Right. That's right.
Okay. I
And
go. I translate, Cara.
okay.
Okay.
Now can you hear me? Is it better now? It goes in and out, right?
Yeah. But
Okay,
but I
so-
think it's not your fault, Cara.
Oh,
It's not your
hope
fault.
not. Oh
Don't
God.
worry.
All right. So
Okay. But we can do. I translate in Italian. Wait just one
you're
second.
doing beautifully. You're okay. So
Thank you. You do.
oh,
Da questo
so he started reading this, and then when he started showing it to his family and friends, they said, "You must publish this." And he didn't want to because he was so private. They said, "No, she is the voice of young people." And she wanted to be published. She said, "I want to go on living even after my death." And
Okay.
so he wanted to honor her.
Ok, so I go to translate.
Okay.
Da questo momento in poi lui, incuriosito da questi scritti di Anna, comincia a leggerli attentamente e per lui fu una grande scoperta perché lui conosceva la figlia come una ragazzina, una classica teenager, una ragazzina gioiosa, allegra, con la voglia di vivere, ma attraverso questi scritti della figlia si trova di fronte una ragazzina di cui lui non sapeva nulla, non aveva mai avuto la sensazione di conoscerla così profondamente come invece stava facendo attraverso questi scritti. Non sapeva di avere una ragazzina così sensibile, così attenta a ciò che stava succedendo. Nel momento in cui scopre questo, we can say dark side of Anna, l'altro aspetto del suo carattere, del suo animo, decide assolutamente di voler pubblicare questi scritti e ormai era diventato l'unico obiettivo della sua vita, perché rappresentava l'osservazione della realtà da parte di una teenager e che non poteva assolutamente essere non potevano essere omessi questi pensieri, ma tutti dovevano sapere ciò che era successo. Cara, go?
Okay, so in time, the book was published in Holland in Dutch, then in English, and then it became world famous. In America, they had the play, The Diary of Anne Frank, and then they were wanting to do the movie.
I can hear you, Cara.
Okay, the first
so
did
the first
the play
in Dutch, then in German, and then in English, right?
That's right. And so then in America, they did the Broadway play, Diary of Anne Frank. You hear me? And then they wanted to do a movie and so they were going to cast the movie, and they looked everywhere. They were auditioning everybody to be Anne.
Okay.
That's where I came in.
Ok. Da questo momento in poi l'obiettivo di Otto Frank viene realizzato e la prima versione del diario di Anne Frank fu scritta in olandese e fu pubblicato in Olanda. Subito dopo ci fu la traduzione in tedesco e poi in tutte le altre lingue. La prima traslazione in un film trasformazione di questa opera scritta in un film ci fu in America e per la ricerca dell'attrice che avrebbe dovuto rappresentare Anna fu molto scrupolosa, fu molto meticolosa, perché non era facile trovare un'attrice che potesse rappresentare Anna in modo fedele. Go Anna, cara.
Okay, I was 12 years old. This was the early 50s in California, and a talent scout found me and asked me to audition to be Anne for the movie. So that's when I went and auditioned. Of course, I didn't get it, but I asked them at the time, was Otto Frank still alive, and could I write to him? And they gave me his address.
Okay. So at the beginning of the 50s, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Quindi you were 12 years
12.
old? 12.
Yes.
Ok, avevo 12 anni all'inizio degli anni 50 e un talent scout mi reclutò per essere la futura Anna Frank all'interno del film. Al che lei fu sorpresa e chiese: ma Otto Frank è ancora vivo? E fu questo talent scout a darle l'indirizzo di Otto Frank. Go.
Okay, so then we start. His first letter to me, I was so excited. But he said, I cannot keep writing to you. I can't write to you. I write to many people. And I said, that's all right. I just want to write to you. So I started writing to him and he answered me. And in time, he became, and his wife, he had a second wife, Fritzi, that he met through his daughter, Eva, from the camps. Fritzi and Otto were writing, but Otto and I became dear, dear, dear friends. And he encouraged me not to give up hope.
Ok. Da questo momento in poi lei cominciò a scrivere a Otto Frank la sua prima lettera. Lui disse che non avrebbe avuto molto tempo per risponderle, però a lei bastava avere almeno una lettera di risposta da Otto. In realtà però a questa prima lettera ne seguirono tante altre e divennero grandi, grandi amici. Intanto Otto sposò Fritzi, la seconda moglie che aveva incontrato nel campo di concentramento, e entrambi rispondevano alle varie lettere e divennero grandi amici. Ok? Go, Cara.
So in the 60s, our country was, America was going through absolute hell, very similar what was happening now. We had assassinations of our president, killing, and the Vietnam War, and race riots. And I wrote to Otto Frank and I said, I will never bring a child this cruel. And he wrote back and he said, you cannot give up hope. Even if you believe the end of the world.
Cara, we can't hear you. So after you wrote to him and he said, never give up for hope, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so he said, you cannot give up hope. And
okay.
So,
allora, negli anni 60, lei fa riferimento agli anni 60 degli Stati Uniti, in cui ci sono stati una serie di eventi negativi, a partire dall'uccisione di Kennedy, la guerra nel Vietnam, i movimenti per i diritti dei neri d'America, e quindi lei stava vivendo una situazione molto simile a quella di Anna, cioè un momento molto negativo della sua storia, e quindi si sentì di dover scrivere a Otto dicendo che lei in qualità di teenager non voleva più vivere in un mondo così crudele, così cruento. E lui fu molto chiaro nella risposta dicendo: non bisogna mai perdere la speranza. Never give up hope.
Never give up hope. Never give up hope. This is a man who had every reason to be hopeless.
We can't hear you, Cara. Sorry.
No, oh my.
This is a man. Sorry for this.
Oh my God. Still, can you hear me now? No?
So and so, Cara. So Otto said, never give up for hope, and then?
Okay, so we still had not met each other. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Did you meet him?
Finally, yeah. After years and years of writing, I went to Basel, Switzerland, where he and Fritzi were.
Okay.
You hear me? You hear me?
Yeah.
And it was the first time, the only time I met him. And I was at his home. It went away.
Yeah. Here you are.
It says Chilen.
No, it's
okay, Cara.
It's okay.
Cara, just one thing. In which year did you meet him?
I met him. He died in 1980. He was 91. I met him 3 years before that. 1980 is when he died. I met him 3 years before that.
So 1977.
1978.
Yeah, 78.
78.
Yeah, 1978. That's when I met him. And we had a wonderful conversation. He was beautiful. I cried. It was everything I hoped he would be. But one of the key things I asked him is, do you know?
I need to translate, it's too long.
Okay.
Allora, dopo queste lettere trascorsero un po' di anni e alla fine lei ha incontrato Otto Frank soltanto nel 1978. Si recò a Basilea in Svizzera, dove intanto Otto Frank si era trasferito con la sua seconda moglie Fritzi e dove viveva. Per lei è stato un momento di assoluta gioia e vabbè, continuiamo ad ascoltare Cara. Go, Cara.
I asked him a key question. Do you know who betrayed you? And he turned and looked at me and said, it doesn't matter. He probably knew who it was. We think he did. And there is a documentary that will be coming out trying to figure out who did it. He said, it doesn't matter. And that affected my life because he had come to peace at that point. He had come to peace. He wasn't angry.
Okay.
He was sad. He wasn't angry. He chose love over hate.
Okay, I translate.
And that changed my life.
Ok, I translate, Cara. La prima cosa che ho fatto quando ho incontrato Otto è porgli delle domande, ma la prima tra tutte è: sai chi ti ha tradito? E lui di tutto punto risponde: non importa. La cosa più importante, non è importante sapere chi mi ha tradito, ma la cosa più importante è di aver fatto la scelta giusta, cioè di aver superato questo momento con la scelta dell'amore piuttosto che della paura o dell'odio.
That's right. That is really, I mean,
E tutto questo ha cambiato la mia vita. Tutto questo, la sua risposta ha cambiato la mia vita. Go, Cara.
That was the last time I saw him, you know, and 3 years later he died. But what he gave me was the fact that he turned all his sadness, all his bitterness, and he helped the children of the world. I was one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children that wrote to him. And when he opened up a cupboard, he opened up a cupboard and there were boxes from the ceiling to the floor of letters from young people. And then he took a big box and put it on my lap and said, these are your letters.
Wow. Quindi l'incontro con Otto ha cambiato la mia vita, ma ciò che mi ha dato è la scelta dell'amore e non della paura, non della tristezza. Quello che più mi ha sorpreso nell'unica volta in cui l'ho incontrato, perché 3 anni dopo, nel 1981 muore, quello che mi ha dato è la gioia di vivere e soprattutto aveva questa stanza piena di scatole, piene di lettere, perché continuava a scrivere a tutti. Ma la sorpresa fu che tra tutte queste scatole riuscì a trovare le mie lettere. E questo mi ha sorpreso. How can you do?
This is the size of the letters, all the letters.
Your letters to him?
Copies of them, yes.
Okay.
I have all of them.
Lei ha raccolto, Cara, lei ha raccolto tutte le sue lettere, ovviamente la copia delle sue lettere, di questo scambio di lettere con Otto all'interno di questo volume che ci ha appena mostrato. Can you show your volume again?
This is a copy of how many letters?
How many letters? 100?
100. Yeah.
100?
Yeah.
Okay. Quindi questa è la copia di tutte le sue lettere, sono più o meno un centinaio di lettere, tutte quelle che lei ha scambiato con Otto durante questo periodo. Go, Cara.
So, what I want to say is that what I've learned from this journey is that we have choices in our life to be filled with fear and hate, or choose love, because love changes everybody's life. And his choice of being loving rather than hateful saved me and hundreds and hundreds that he loved. All races, all religions. He was a loving man, and he embraced the world in his daughter's name.
Ok. Quindi la cosa più importante, ciò che mi ha lasciato, ciò che mi ha cambiato è la scelta verso l'amore piuttosto che l'odio e l'insensibilità. Cara ci dice, scegliendo l'amore per gli altri, tutto può essere superato. Non c'è possibilità di salvezza se non si sceglie con amore. So Cara, so something else. So he chose love
over hate.
Over hate. Quindi ha scelto l'amore piuttosto che l'odio e la discriminazione. Quindi per lei non c'è discriminazione né tra le razze né tra le diverse religioni. Cara, go?
Yes. So that is really what I feel now. We're living in a world that still has a great deal of fear and hate and disease, but we have choices how to deal with them. And in our sorrows, in our challenges, we can choose love over hate.
Ok, anche noi stiamo vivendo in un momento di paura, di odio, ma noi abbiamo la scelta, possiamo scegliere l'amore, perché soltanto facendo questa scelta ci possiamo salvare. Ok? Caraco?
That's it. I mean, now I think, I would welcome questions.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Let's have some questions. Celine, can you read number 3, please? Numero 3.
Quanto è difficile esercitare l'arte di amare come risposta all'odio e alla prevaricazione?
Cara, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so the first question to you is how difficult it is to exercise love as a response to hatred or prevarication?
It's a beautiful question. I have a very hard time with that because I've been very angry with what's happened in my own country. It's been horrible. And every day I have to choose love every day, every moment. So it's like a muscle that needs exercise.
It's like a
muscle.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
muscle. And I want to show you something here. Here. If I were here with you, I have these rocks, pebbles, I have rocks. We are each one stone. You throw it in the river and there's ripples. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We are that one stone. You can choose to send out anger and hate, or you can choose to send out love. It's in your hands, always.
Ok. Quindi Cara risponde alla domanda dicendo che anche lei si trova in una situazione di dover scegliere durante la sua vita e quindi nonostante le avversità della vita sceglie l'amore. Ognuno di noi può fare la propria parte, scegliere se per l'amore oppure per l'odio. Ovviamente sta a noi fare la scelta giusta.
It's like when Otto Frank was in Auschwitz. He had a choice he said to this young man, not only call me Papa, but he chose not to focus on what was around him, all the death. He said, let's talk about books and music and my children.
Okay.
And that's what kept him.
Ok. È la stessa scelta che fa Otto, nonostante trascorre questo periodo nel campo di concentramento di Auschwitz, fa la scelta. non vuole assolutamente focalizzare la sua attenzione su ciò che lo circondava, cioè momenti di morte, di assoluta tristezza, ma vuole focalizzarsi su cose positive. Infatti chiede a coloro che lo circondano di farsi chiamare papà, di concentrarsi sui libri, sulla vita, sulla musica, non pensare a ciò che lo circondava. Go, Cara.
It's all in our perspective, all in us, in our head, how we see things.
Tutto dipende da noi, da come vediamo le cose, dal nostro punto di vista. Quindi a noi la scelta.
Right.
Cara?
Un'altra domanda da Gianluca.
Sì.
Vai Gianluca.
Immaginiamo la tua emozione il giorno in cui hai incontrato Otto Frank. Era proprio come lo immaginavi?
Oh, so they are curious about your first meeting with Otto. So we can imagine your emotions, your feelings. And
I can say it really fast. You want me to say it fast? If you can hear me? Can
Yeah,
you hear
yeah,
me? All right.
Yeah, yes, of course. So
I was,
your first meeting with Otto was just as you have imagined it, or it was different? Because we can only imagine your feelings and your emotions, but you describe them.
I cried.
It is not so easy. I think it's not so easy to describe these emotions, but try.
I practiced because I was from Hollywood. I practiced scene A and scene B.
Oh, right. So you have been a producer.
I was in my mind. Scene A was with the big hug and we would be so happy. And scene B was a little
Shake
cold.
your hand.
Shake my hand. But when I met him standing at the train station.
Oh, wait, Cara, I would like to translate the first part.
All right.
Allora, la prima volta che ho incontrato Otto è come se fossi stata un regista in questo momento, perché immaginavo la scena A o la scena B, cioè la scena A se avessi dovuto abbracciarlo con un forte abbraccio, o la scena B semplicemente stringergli la mano. Ho cercato di immaginare nella mia mente l'opzione A o l'opzione B. Dice che la prima volta l'ho incontrato alla stazione. You met him at the train station?
He met me with his wife when I got off the train, and I looked, and he's this tall, elegant man, and he said, Cara, and he hugged me.
So scene A. So scene A.
It was very beautiful.
I translate. Allora, Cara, you met him at Basel, right?
Basel, Switzerland.
Yeah. Allora, la prima volta che l'ho incontrato, ovviamente lei si reca a Basilea in Svizzera, lo incontro alla stazione e da lontano vide quest'uomo alto, elegante e come lei aveva immaginato si verifica la scena A, cioè di questo grande abbraccio che lui chiede a lei, dice oh Cara, sono contento di averti incontrato, quindi per lei si realizza la scena A del grande abbraccio. Go, Cara.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do you have another, Roberto?
Yes, Roberto, have you got another question?
Concludiamo l'incontro con Cara, ma per concluderlo io vorrei che Cara approfittasse del fatto che siamo davanti a decine di migliaia di studenti e che provasse a... Cosa vuoi dire ai nostri studenti che ti stanno ascoltando? È molto importante secondo me questo.
Ok, Cara, as Roberto told us that we are in front of many thousands students and he would like to know what is your final message to our students just to make the right choice.
I hope this can come through. I wanted to say, because it is very difficult. It's a challenge to be able to make a positive choice. But I want to end with a wonderful story, and I'll try to go very slowly.
Wait just a second. Allora, Cara ha detto non è facile dire cosa fare, ma ci vuole lasciare con una breve storia. Ok, Cara?
So there was an Indian chief, and his grandson said, Father, what is the secret of life? What is the secret of life? And he said, there are two wolves inside of us. One is evil, angry, full of fear. The other one is full of love and goodness and hope. And the young boy said, well, Father, which one is the one that wins? And he said, the one that you feed.
The one?
The one that you feed is the
okay.
one. Okay.
Two wolves?
Yes.
Ok. Is an Indian story?
Yes.
Ok. Allora, la breve storia che lei ci ha raccontato, racconta di un ragazzo che chiede al padre, can you repeat? Because I didn't understand what you said. Two wolves inside the person?
There, he asked him, what is the secret?
What is the secret of life?
Yes.
Okay.
Said there are two wolves inside of us.
Okay.
One is evil and angry and full of fear and brutality. The other one is full of hope and love and optimism.
Mm-hmm.
And the child said, which one of the wolves wins?
Will wins.
And he said, the one that you feed.
Mm-hmm. Ok. Allora, il ragazzo chiede al padre qual era il segreto della vita e lui dice, all'interno di ciascuno di noi ci sono due parti, due rupi, dice. Uno fatto di odio, di brutalità, di cose negative. L'altro fatto di speranza, di amore, di ottimismo. E il ragazzo ovviamente dice, e come si fa a scegliere tra l'uno e l'altro? E il padre risponde, dipende da ciò che tu favorisci, da ciò che tu nutri, quindi dipende da te. Cara, go?
That is, yes. I love that story. I love
Me
that.
too.
Yeah. Adesso c'è una domanda dal nostro relatore Gianluca D'Agostino.
Mm-hmm.
One more question, Cara, from our friend Gianluca D'Agostino in the meeting.
Yes, may I speak to Cara in English directly?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Yes, because it's such an honor for me to hear you. And I must say that although I have always thought that I had read enough about the story, I learned a lot today from you. And I beg your pardon if I haven't read the book, but that's something, yeah. Yes, I miss it. That's something I have to do. I will do it as soon as possible. But nonetheless, I'd like to ask you this question. Coming back for a second to the scene, terrible scene when the SS Silberbauer took them in prison. I wonder, is it possible that after that scene and after so many years, I'm trying to feel the feelings of Otto, okay? Is it true, for example, that he had no feelings whatever of anger and revenge against Silberbauer? And if so, is it true for you that this very fact was useful to Silberbauer to escape a process?
A very good question. Silberbauer was one of the people that they thought had betrayed them, but apparently that wasn't the case. He was one of the people that was considered, but that was not the case. When Otto Frank, said, so when I had heard, he said, it doesn't matter. What I heard though, what I learned is when Otto was liberated, he wanted to find out who betrayed his family. He was very angry. He was, and he asked everybody, did you know who did this? So he did want to know. And it took him a long time. I think, and it will come out. There's a documentary called Cold Case Diary, but I think they have found out. I don't know. It's very exciting, but it's getting very close. But Otto, we believe, knew ultimately, or somebody close to it. There are many suspects. We don't have time. There are 3 or 4 that I know of, but still we don't know which ones. Silberbauer, Miep even went to Silberbauer after they were arrested to bribe him to see if they can get them out of this holding camp. And he said no. But he was part of a group of people that could have been the ones that betrayed them. There's one in particular. There are many stories, and they're fascinating. And I encourage you to read it. One called The Hidden Life of Otto Frank. Beautiful story about Caroline Lee. It says very much, excellent. But yes, Otto was very, very wanted to know. And then whether he found out or came to peace and realized there was so much good that came out of his daughter's words and books and the diary. By the time I met him, he didn't want to talk about it. He was at peace.
Gianluca, per favore, puoi tradurre sia la tua domanda che la risposta?
Ho chiesto alla signora Cara, dopo averle detto che mi dispiace di non aver letto il suo libro, ho chiesto se, tornando al discorso dell'arresto, al momento dell'arresto, fosse vero, fosse possibile che Otto non avesse provato sentimenti di rabbia o di vendetta contro Silberbauer, cioè contro quella SS che in effetti l'aveva arrestata. Noi tutti sappiamo che i nazisti si sono sempre difesi dicendo che obbedivano a ordini superiori e questo per molti è servito. Ho chiesto quindi a Cara se il fatto che Otto non manifestasse sentimenti di vendetta contro Silberbauer fosse servito allo stesso Silberbauer per evitare l'arresto. La risposta è che effettivamente la risposta è molto articolata, è stata molto articolata ed è stata sostanzialmente questa. Otto, dopo molti anni soprattutto, e cioè quando ha cominciato a interagire con Cara, immagino, aveva effettivamente maturato sentimenti di, se non di perdono, forse possiamo dire, perlomeno non erano quelle le sue intenzioni, non era la rabbia.
Non rientrava nel suo obiettivo.
Non era quello il principale obiettivo. No. E quindi immagino di aver indovinato, diciamo, un po' nella domanda quella che fosse la ricostruzione però poi Cara ha aggiunto che c'erano probabilmente sentimenti forti di sospetto contro coloro che tradirono. Quindi stiamo parlando di persone diverse. Ecco, vorrei che questo fosse chiaro al pubblico. Stiamo parlando di persone diverse e tuttora sconosciute al pubblico, insomma. E probabilmente l'unica, ecco, forse maybe the key figure, Cara, was the key figure in all of this maybe was Miep, in the sense that probably the only person who really knew about the person who tracked them was Miep. Wasn't that true?
That's a possibility. She did say she knew and she wasn't going to say. So we will find out. I know we will. But Miep was like a hero. She was the one that held everything together. She was the one that they couldn't have done it without her. There are so many suspects in this. And if she was protecting somebody, which she might have been, it was, this is one of the reasons Otto Frank probably did not want to reveal it, because surrounding any one of those suspects, that even I know of 4 or 5 of them, there were good people, families that would suffer forever because of them. And Otto Frank would never want that. He would not want that. And we would not want it either.
Okay.
They knew how horrible, because somebody betrayed them and collected 8 people in hiding.
Sì, Cara conferma che Nip Gies fu una figura eroica perché rischiò in prima persona, naturalmente, rischiò moltissimo perché fu quella che consentì materialmente ai coloro che erano nascosti nella retrocasa di sopravvivere per ben 2 anni, perché serbò per molto tempo i diari e le carte di Anna e li serbò gelosamente e probabilmente era sì, l'unica persona che sapesse realmente chi li aveva traditi.
Allora, andiamo a concludere questo incontro bellissimo, questo incontro fatto di bellezza con tutte le lettere maiuscole. E ringraziamo Cara. Cara, ti mandiamo anche i saluti da parte di Federica Pannocchia.
Yes.
Yes.
I love her.
Many cheers from Federica.
Yes. I love her.
One day we will meet everyone.
Yes.
Un giorno ci incontreremo tutti.
We have to.
Yes. So, Cara, we do thank you. Grazie infinite a Cara, è stato un onore grandissimo per me. Grazie ancora.
Hi, Cara. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Cara.
And we wait for you.
We must all be reunion. Thank you, Josephine. I know this was very difficult. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good night. Good night,
Cara.
I'm going to bed now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.